Why I'm still glad Hillary Clinton lost, even though I didn't vote for Trump. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and as somebody who was a lifelong leftist up until last year, where I became a centrist, who knows thousands of leftist people in real life, with hundreds and hundreds of them still on my Facebook friend list, I'm noticing a number of smug leftists who don't really know anything about politics posting things about how bad Trump is, and how they aren't hearing support from his supporters at the moment. A deafening silence from Trump supporters now that he is in office, I heard from one. Another made an entire post which was a laundry list of all of the things wrong with Trump, and then she said, "Imagine if a woman was in office and doing such things, and what the response would be," implying that Trump isn't being criticized as much as a woman in office would be. These types of people are just precious. What it seems that these people don't really understand is that the vast majority of people that I know, at least, who voted for Trump, didn't necessarily think that he was going to be any sort of great politician. And sure, maybe they are disappointed that he seems to have surrounded himself with people that will make it difficult to enact any drastic positive changes. Still, people are glad that Trump won, even still, because most people who were paying attention simply were trying really hard to stop Hillary Clinton and Democratic Party Incorporated, who had a seemingly undisputed monopoly on all of culture and media, was willing to bail out all of the big banks repeatedly, not regulate immigration, make completely awful trade deals, participate in endless drone strikes, carelessly destabilize governments like Libya, and then call anybody who disagreed with this racists and sexists. People saw where that was headed, saw that Clinton was probably going to quietly pass the TTP if she got into office, at least eventually, and saw that we were clearly not going to be allowed to say anything about it without being branded a misogynist, which might as well have ended up a crime. It was headed that way. When people saw the possibility of that future, they said that they'd take any other option. Were there people who fully supported Trump with all of their hearts and thought that he'd be one of the best presidents ever? Absolutely. There were a few of those, but they were mostly just young idealists who had never really supported a candidate much in the past because they hadn't been old enough to vote or follow politics much. Still, what is the crime of supporting a candidate as the lesser of two evils because they saw the awfulness of Hillary Clinton, who was basically declaring a full-on war with Russia if she were to be elected, and who was caught red-handed in treasonous security breaches from her emails? More so, the election made it abundantly and dismally clear the way mainstream media was going to bend over backwards to protect their Empress Hillary Clinton at all costs before the election was even over. So who would want to live in a world like that? Who wants to live in a world where media isn't anything besides propaganda for the ruling party? Who would want to live in a world where a president basically already declared war on Russia during the debates, where she was probably going to find a way to quietly pass the TTP, where she'd continue with the ridiculous foreign policy, make the US have levels of feminist law similar to Canada, and then start immigrating people in the ways that Germany is? Then, the whole time, all of mainstream media would be supporting her every step of the way, and YouTube channels would probably end up being shut down left and right, so there'd be nobody to hold her to account. We saw that future, and it was about the worst case scenario imaginable. So now that we're living with the aftermath, it's really not all that bad. Trump killed the TTP almost immediately after getting into office, and there was a deafening silence from the media. He's done some things I don't like, such as passing a feminist STEM bill to put even more females into STEM education in universities unnaturally after we already know that most young women don't really want to be there. And Trump Care does seem to be a bit of a mess, though not as bad as most people say, though I don't really actually know that much about it, so I shouldn't comment that much. Still, Trump might end up doing all sorts of crappy things, but the main goddamn point of this video is that we are completely free to criticize him all the time. And it's actually encouraged. Our entire media and culture as Americans is now based around being actively engaged with every detail of politics and criticizing our federal government when it does something wrong. Is that as good as having a truly awesome president that is going to do everything right without us having to put pressure on them? Well, absolutely not. I'd love a perfect president that we don't have to hold to account every step of the way. But I have news for you. There are no perfect presidents, especially with corporate interests meddling with politics as much as they now do. Truthfully, it seems that the only way anybody would be considered a perfect president by any large amount of people with the contemporary cultural dialogue being what it is, would be if they were a woman or a racial minority and therefore nobody was allowed to criticize them. So, in 8 years' time, we'd have a black lesbian in a wheelchair as our president, and she could be eating babies on television, and everybody would say, she's stunning and brave. So, sorry, not sorry, but I'm glad we aren't headed in that direction anytime soon, and I'm glad I still get to make every snarky YouTube video making fun of whoever I want. Eventually, Trump will get on my last nerve and I'll devote time to actually making videos, making fun of him, I imagine. But as it stands now, that's about the least in-demand type of socio-political content that exists. So that's all I have to say for this video. Drop me a comment, help me out on Patreon if you think I seem cool, and stay tuned.